Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast on the Alliance. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 96, the Troadec affair. On the 23rd of February 2017, Helene is worried that she hasn't heard from her sister's family for at least a week. She calls the authorities who make a grim discovery. On the 20th of February 2017, Helene is seriously getting worried. She hasn't heard from her sister's family for a week. She hasn't heard from her sister, from anybody in that household. That's her sister, her husband, a son and a daughter. Nobody answers phone calls. Brigitte, the sister, hasn't called her mum on Sunday, as she normally does, because that's a common thing people do in France. My parents do it. They all live in a residential area of Orvaux, which is near Nantes. That's south of Brittany.
It's kind of weird that in this day and age people are still phoning each other.
Yep, every Sunday. The next day, Helene's kids send texts to their cousins, but they also don't get any answer.
For a whole family not to be responding, or not to be endlessly on social media in this day and age is weird.
Yeah, because the son was 18 and the daughter 20.
Oh, and they'll have had phones glued to their hands.
In 2017, they would be glued to the phone, so So not knowing what to do, Helene calls her brothers-in-law's employer to catch him there, because she assumed he was at work, and ask what was happening. But she's told that he hasn't been at work since the 16th. So at that point, she's so worried that she doesn't know what to do, and she decides to call the authorities. And she does so on the 23rd of February. And they go and check on them.
So, I mean, this guy's been missing from work, for 4 days?
Yeah, at least, yes. 4 or 5 days, depending on what days he works.
Yes, that's true.
When the cops get to their house, nobody answers the doors. When they get inside, they find the house empty, but not empty in a good way. The bed sheets have been removed from the beds.
Oh, God.
Toothbrushes and hairbrushes are missing, and the heating is switched off.
In February in Brittany.
Yes.
Brr.
But there's no trace of a break-in. They also find traces of blood on the floor and on socks belonging to the son and on his earphones, which are left.
God.
The fridge contains a box of sushi that expired on the 17th.
Oh, God. Nobody eat that, for God's sake. There'll be another death.
Yeah. The house also looks like the family left in a hurry. It's not known at the time if the departure is voluntary or not.
Right.
The two parents' cars are still parked on the property, but the son's 308 is gone.
308?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite small for...
Oh, it can easily fit 4 people.
Yeah, sitting up and alive.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. From that point on, the authorities assume that something happened to the family, but they don't know if it involves outside third parties.
I'm just trying to think of what size a 308 would be. I mean, I think that would count as subcompact in the States.
Well, I don't know what it counts as in the States, no.
Be about the size of a Puma, a Ford Puma or something, wouldn't it?
I don't know. The old Puma was quite small, but the new one is probably big. Yeah, probably.
All cars are getting more and more gigantic. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. An inquiry started, obviously, because everybody's missing. On the 27th of February, the investigative judge has a press conference where he explains the facts as they are known at that point. He says that the house looks like it suddenly froze in time.
So it's a Mary Celeste moment, kind of.
Yes, exactly. The local press and TV stations get into gear very quickly, of course, because that's exciting. Something's happening. Probably not much happens in Nantes in winter. They constantly discuss the empty house. They show photo of the white house. It's white. And ID photos of all the family members. They also draw parallels with the Dupont-Ligonnès affair.
Of course, yes.
Episode 53.
Yeah.
For those who want to listen to it. Because it took place only 4 kilometers away.
Oh, God, okay, yeah.
And
right.
not long before, I think a matter of months before. So, also the two sons of the two families were studying in the same school in Vendée.
Oh, was that religious school?
No, it was an IT school.
An IT school, okay.
Yes, they were both doing a degree in computing.
Okay.
I thought,
but they were very religious, weren't they? They were very churchy.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But it was a few years apart, so there's no reason to think that they knew each other.
It's just an unfortunate coincidence at this
Yes.
point, yeah.
In both affairs, the bed sheets and personal effects and the family members were missing.
That's always I don't know how many true crime things I've watched, and you see stained mattresses. There's never any sheets. It seems to be the method people use to drag a cadaver around, which is a grim thought.
Yes. The Rosas discovered that the son's mobile was the last one to be switched off at 3:15 a.m. on the night from the 16th to the 17th.
Right.
On the 24th, the local police releases a bolo to all police and gendarmerie stations in the country for looking for the family.
Yeah.
The bolo mentions that they suspect something has been orchestrated by the son, since his phone was the last one to switch off and his car was missing.
Mm.
So in their head, the son killed his parents and his family.
And has done a runner.
Yeah, put the bodies in the car and ran away.
Mm.
The press digs out Twitter posts from the son from many years earlier, where he mentions shouting matches with his dad, being depressed, wanting to die and all that. They
Typical teenager stuff.
Yeah, they completely ignore other messages where he jokes with his friends and he talks about how he has great friends and he wants to be loved and all that. That's just essentially a typical teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, you have highs and you have lows as a teenager. Come on, don't just focus on the lows.
But the press just focuses on the lows.
Yes, of course.
Mainly because the police said we suspect it's
the
him.
son.
Mm. Yes, and they just run with it.
Yeah, of course.
The police also discover that having been bullied at school, he had posted that he was going to go postal on the town someday. And having been alerted at the time, the police had found a fake gun under his pillow that he had bought in Spain. It was a toy.
Mm.
And they had arrested him, and he had been sentenced to community service, which he did without any problem.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that, when I was a kid, toy guns were kind of like reasonably prevalent. I guess they're a little less common now. Certainly in Europe, anyway. Yeah.
At the time, a psychologist had noted that the parents were incapable of hearing and understanding their son's suffering.
Oh, for God's sake. Every teenager suffers.
Yes. So yes, it was essentially just teenage boy stuff, and the press makes a big deal out of it because from that point on, he's the guilty guy and he needs to be found. The relationship between the son and his parents, in fact, got a lot better afterwards, once he had gone to the school in Vendée for his studies.
Right.
He became independent, became happy, he was good at school, and his parents, who had constantly complained about the amount of time he was spending at his computer, were then proud that their son was turning his hobby into a job.
Uh-huh. And can you relate to that, Cedric?
A little bit. But yeah, so in fact the relationship between the son and the family was pretty good at that point, but the press just ignored it.
I mean, I guess a lot of teenagers are just wanting to rebel because they have no control over their life. So the minute they get a bit of control, they suddenly, start to knuckle down. So that's obviously what was happening here.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the blood is identified as the blood that was found in the house is identified as belonging to 3 out of the 4 members of the family.
All right. Okay. So this is certainly fitting into their...
No, because the one missing is the youngest daughter.
Oh, right. Okay.
So they found blood for the parents and the son, but not for the daughter.
Oh.
On the 1st of March, a jogger finds trousers, a credit card, and a carte vitale.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's a health card. You can't get any to see a doctor, or you have to be in the kind of like the system in order to access, or you have to pay.
I don't even think you can pay. You're just not allowed to access the system if you don't have that card.
Oh yes, it's a lucky magic card that
Lucky magic, you get it automatically.
Yeah, you do. You have to jump through many hoops to get it.
Yes. So they found those things belonging to the youngest daughter near Dineron, which is in Finistère in Brittany.
Right, so not too far away.
270 kilometers away.
Right. But still in the same... we're not talking it's like way across the other side of the country.
No. The parents were originally from that area.
All right, okay.
Tracker dogs are sent to the scene and they discover 2 school books belonging to the father, Pascal.
School books?
School books from when he was in middle school.
That's weird.
Yes.
They sound like hoarders. I don't have any kind of anything like that.
I don't know if I certainly don't hear. I don't know if my parents kept anything. I have no idea. Anyway, they find it on the side of the road, and they find a cloth that looks like a torn bedsheet near the same town of Dineron.
Right.
The next day, on the 2nd of March, the son's car is found parked on the church car parked in Saint-Nazaire, so it's slightly down the coast from Nantes.
Mm-hmm.
The doors are closed but not locked. The investigating judge has another press conference at that point to present the progress of the investigation because, of course, he's under pressure to find something. And several people report sightings of the son in the region.
I think that probably shows you how. I mean, to me, he doesn't sound like he's alive, and it's just so indicative of bad leads, and eyewitnesses are just such a waste of time.
They're useless. Yeah, exactly. If you show something on the news to people, they're going to see it in the streets. So then more DNA results come back from the lab.
Mm-hmm.
The blood from the youngest daughter is found near her bed on the floor.
Oh, right, okay.
And DNA from an unknown male is found on a glass left in the kitchen sink.
Oh, right, okay. So we've now got an indicator that something else has happened outside the family.
Exactly. We have somebody from outside the family in that house at some point, probably around that time.
Right, yes.
Of course, it could have been somebody who came in for dinner.
Yeah, and just visited.
Could have been a neighbor. We don't know yet who it is.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of people forget when, we've got DNA evidence. DNA evidence is highly circumstantial. It doesn't prove that, that you committed a crime. All it proves is that you were there at some point.
Yes. So, Hubert and Lydie are interviewed. Lydie is Pascal's sister, so the father's sister, and Hubert at that point is her ex-husband. Hubert, yeah.
Hubert.
So they are interviewed, obviously, because they are part of the family. And the police went to their last known address to ask them to come and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody lived there. The house was completely empty. The garden was a jungle. So they went to Hubert's mother's house.
Right.
To ask her, where are they? She didn't know. They went to Lydie's mother's house called Renée, and she said she had a mobile number. Right. So they asked her to call that number.
Right.
Nobody answered, and leave a message saying you need to go and talk to the Rosers in Brest.
Yeah.
Which they did at about 10 p.m. on that day.
Mm-hmm.
But what they say is that they hadn't had any contact with the Troadec family for years.
Right.
They both confirm, though, that the bad relationship between the families started a good number of years earlier because of a treasure story.
A treasure?
A treasure.
As in yar.
As in gold.
Right.
But that's all they say. They don't have any more information. They don't know. They haven't talked to them in many, many years. Yeah. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. It's always follow the money. That's always a good way to solve a murder.
Yes. On the 5th of March, so a few days later, the cops arrest Hubert and Lydie this time.
Okay.
They don't interview them. They actually arrest them at their farm in Finistère.
So they live in a farm, not on some kind of...
Their official address is in the town,
right?
In a house where the cops found just a jungle and nobody had been there for years. But they discovered that they in fact also own a farm
Uh-huh.
in Finisterre, not very far from where they found the things belonging to the family.
Okay, so they own a farm, presumably with lots of land.
26 acres, as far
Right.
as I remember. So, yeah, a good farm.
So pretty convenient for hiding
Yes.
stuff.
Yes. You can hide quite a lot in there.
Yes.
In the end, it was very easy, because first the police received an anonymous letter that was telling them to stop looking for the son as a suspect
Right.
and look towards the ex-brother-in-law, because he was pathologically jealous of Pascal.
No, right, okay.
They
Oh,
don't,
the
they don't know who
old,
sent that letter.
yeah, so the old if you can't have her, no one can syndrome.
Possibly,
Yeah.
yes.
But with the money element thrown in as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the time they received the letter, they don't take it very seriously, because in their head it was still the son.
Mm.
So they just say, meh, and that was it. But when they got more DNA,
Oh.
then they started to take it seriously,
Oh.
because the DNA on the glass is Hubert's DNA.
Yeah. And claiming that you haven't seen them for
Exactly,
years
that
and
doesn't
years.
look good.
Yeah. Now that's different.
Yes. So now they're very interested, and that's
Yeah.
why they arrest them.
Mm-hmm.
He is charged with murder and interfering with corpses,
Right.
and Lydie, the sister of Pascal, is charged with interfering with the crime scene and transporting corpses. But at the moment, they're just being charged so that they can be kept somewhere.
Right.
They don't want them to disappear.
No.
Because they discovered already they had secret houses that even the family didn't know about, so they don't want them to just suddenly go.
Mm.
But they really don't have much at the moment. They suspect an inheritance dispute in the family.
It's always money.
Yes.
If it's not lust, it's money.
Yeah. They suspect that Hubert was suspecting Pascal, so his brother-in-law, to somehow have stolen some gold bars and gold coins after the death of his father in 2010,
Right.
which, in his head, Lydie should have inherited, because she's the sister.
Yeah.
The gold came from a alleged treasure discovered by Pascal's dad in 2006 when he was renovating a house.
Now, I thought money went to the state when you...
Yes.
But you have to tell the state, presumably.
Yeah, apparently the dad found bags of gold inside the walls of the house he was renovated.
Uh-huh.
At the point, they only know that because it was mentioned by Renee, so the grandmother,
Right.
the wife of the guy who found the gold. But that's about it. They
Is that
don't
kind of
know
like one of those
what
old
that is.
family... Those old family tales of, oh yes, your
Yeah.
great-grandfather found,
Yes.
well,
that's
Spanish doubloons.
Yes, well, my grandfather told me that his grandfather found gold in the walls as well when he renovated his house once.
Okay, so it is obviously hugely common.
It seems to be.
Wow.
Never happened to us, but we
No.
found weird things when we did the wall, the opening in
We
the
did,
house. And
but
we
sadly-
found secret cupboards and stuff, but it was only crap in it. But
Yeah, sadly there was no gold bars.
yeah, we weren't lucky. We didn't get gold bars. On the 10th of March, fragments of 4 bodies and some jewelry are found on the farm.
Right.
So like 6 days later.
Mm-hmm.
The body parts are identified through DNA as being the missing family.
Mm.
That seals the deal for Hubert and Lydie at that point. On the 6th of April, after his arrest, Hubert continues to deny. He just tells the story the cops have,
Mm-hmm.
but we have nothing to do with this. We don't know them. But then the cops, after the 10th, show them the DNA evidence.
Yeah.
And then he starts maybe talking a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
And then they mention the body parts they found.
Right.
And then he makes a complete confession.
Of course he does.
So in fact, the story started much earlier than all that. It started probably around the autumn of 2013.
Right, okay. So it'd been brewing for a good few months
Yeah.
at that point.
At that point, Hubert starts having fits of rage where he hits his head on the walls. Apparently, he even breaks walls with his head.
Okay.
And it takes a long time to figure out that it's due to noise. He just can't stand any noise. He has apparently become hypersensitive to noises.
Oh, God.
He sees a specialist who identifies that he's hypersensitive to low-frequency noises. So, for example, he can't stand hearing his neighbors in the house.
Yeah.
He can't stand hearing noises at work.
God.
Even though they give him a completely insulated office, he can still hear machinery in the distance, and that still drives him nuts.
Oh, no.
So every noise for him is a torture.
Yeah. Oh, dear. That's not good.
Yeah, so he tried to see a psychiatrist after those tests.
Yeah.
And on the day of the appointment, he got lost. And then he got stuck in traffic jams. And then he turned up late. And apparently he was totally sweaty and drenched in sweat and just walked away. And he never went back.
God.
And at that time, they live in a house on top of a cliff in Finisterre, near the sea.
Wow.
And he just can't stand the noise of the wind and the waves.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, they get really...
Yes.
Well, whenever there's any bad storms coming,
Yes.
Brittany
It gets noisy.
really... They get the fastest winds in the country.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Maybe not, actually. I think there's faster winds in the top of Massif Central.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
But,
it's
on
not,
low-level land, yes, by
Yeah.
far, yes.
But on the winds and the Mistral and stuff, it doesn't compare to the winter winds that they get.
No, but in Massif Central when there are
Yes.
storms.
Yes, of
on the
course. Yeah,
mountains,
because it
they-
is much higher
Yeah,
up. Yes,
exactly.
Of course.
Pic du Midi has very, very strong winds. But yeah, in lowland, Pointe du Raz is the fastest wind at sea level, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
By far.
it's sticking out into the Atlantic. So
Yeah.
it gets all the Atlantic west.
So he also can't stand the noise coming from his neighbor's greenhouse. So they go and live with his mother for a while, but there
Right.
again, there's too many noises and it drives him crazy. Eventually, they start spending one night a week at René Troadec's house, so Lydie's grandmother.
Right.
No, Lydie's mother. And it's quiet, but one day a bit of metal fall off their bed and falls on the floor,
Right.
and it sends him nuts.
Oh, God.
And then he accuses his brother-in-law at the time to have sabotaged their bed.
Sorry. So he drove all the way to this house just to...
Well, sometimes they met the grandmother, and so they were sometimes around the house.
Sometimes.
But
yeah,
he
but-
accuses him to have sabotaged the bed. And they never got along really well anyway. So it's just one more step.
Yeah.
Hubert finds Pascal very weird. But Hubert is also very weird.
I was going to say, hang on a minute, weird finds somebody weird. Yeah.
Yes. He doesn't throw away anything. He keeps everything from yogurt pots to entire websites he visits. So he visits a website, he downloads the whole thing.
Oh, my God.
He then classifies and orders everything. He's just a hoarder, but he's an organized hoarder.
So hang on, is this Hubert that's the hoarder?
That's Hubert, yes.
Okay, right.
Over time, the relationship between the Troadecs and Hubert and Lydie gets worse. Often disagreements emerge from nothing and small incidents. Like, for example, where their son, so Hubert and Lydie's son, probably slightly autistic from the descriptions I read, is seated at the Christmas dinner. He was put near a peanut bowl, and suddenly Hubert and Lydie have a big argument with the rest of the family because they decide that their son could have choked on the peanuts. They could have
Right.
just moved the bowl, but
Yeah.
suddenly it becomes an argument at Christmas. Everything's like that between the two sides of the family. In June 2014, René Troadec, the grandmother or the mother, tells Hubert a story. She tells him how her husband, now dead, because he died in 2006, had discovered a treasure in a building he was renovating. He had hidden it in his toolbox and taken it home in secret, which is, as you said, illegal because technically it belonged to the owner of the building and they had to pay taxes on it.
Of course. The French like to tax
Yes.
everything.
Yeah. So he takes it home in secret and hides it at home. And suddenly things make sense to Hubert. Pascal and Brigitte's behavior, how the old man had talked about high taxes before his death, when in fact he was an electrician. The constant calls from Pascal to his sister to ask if she had learned about her father's death and what it is that she had learned about him before he died, which she found strange. Why would you call your sister to ask you that? The sabotage of the bed. Now suddenly it makes sense.
Oh, God.
The new cars Pascal and Brigitte had bought He had bought an Audi A4 and she had bought a BMW.
Wow, flash.
The holiday trips with the kids, how Renee wondered how they got all the money.
But was it not just a case of, they were hardworking and they had good jobs? Or?
Well, she doesn't know how they got all that money, but now that he knows about that treasure, it kind of makes sense. That's how they got the money. Also, Renee was sometimes idly wondering how they got the money as well. When she was hospitalized for an operation of on her hip, Pascal had requested the house keys, allegedly to get a toolbox for his son who wanted to do some DIY.
Right.
But it's just before they started living like kings as far as Hubert was concerned.
Okay.
So suddenly he thinks, he looked around the house and found something in the house.
What, you mean the old man hadn't taken the gold out of the toolbox? He just left it in there and...
He's probably hid it in the house.
Yeah, of course he did.
And Pascal discovered it.
Yeah.
So Hubert decided that he deserved part of that treasure. So he put a note in the Troadec's mailbox one day saying that he knows about the gold and if they're willing to share, they need to send him photos of it.
Right.
Apparently Pascal called him that evening totally furious and denying everything.
Yeah, saying WTF.
Yeah. Yes, and apparently Brigitte then picked up the phone and agreed to some deal, which sent mixed messages.
So, hang on a minute, what was there money?
That's all we know at the moment.
Okay.
Lydie says that she recorded the conversation in secret between all four of them, and Pascal and Brigitte mention at some point in the conversation something about a recent criminal case about a contract killer, which Hubert and Lydie interpret as threats. Like, if you don't go away,
then
with the money we'll pay a killer to get rid of you.
Everyone feels super paranoid in this story.
Everybody feels paranoid, yes. So to get revenge, Hubert and Lydie file a complaint about the Troadec to the tax services, saying, look at all they have, all the money they spent. They can't possibly have that money. They must have illegal sources of income.
Yeah.
And to be safe, Hubert and Lydie buy a farm. That's the farm that they bought that nobody knew about.
Okay.
So that's when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's isolated. It's far from everything. It's inside a forest. So there's just no neighbors for miles. And they don't want the family to know about it.
No, okay.
So they don't tell anyone. So officially they still live in town in their house. But they essentially abandoned it.
Yes, okay.
But one day, Renee calls Lydie, so the grandmother, to tell her that Brigitte had called and was asking about Hubert and Lydie's son, and who they hadn't seen at that point for years.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to know how things were going at school, what school he was in, and Hubert and Lydie panic. Because clearly for them, Pascal and Brigitte are trying to track them down via the son and his school.
Okay.
Because if they know what school he goes to, they know where they live.
Okay.
And to them, their son is the last person who should inherit the gold. Because he's the youngest kid.
Yeah.
So they take him out of school, so that he's not at school.
Okay.
Not registered anywhere.
I didn't think that was are you allowed to homeschool in France? I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, you're allowed before high school.
Okay.
High school is compulsory if you're less than 16.
Mm-hmm.
But a primary school you can do. You can homeschool a primary school.
Okay.
So Hubert decides to take things in his own hands at that point. He packs a bag with a camera, gloves, a hoodie, a hat, a stethoscope. It's the school holidays at that point.
A telescope? What is he?
Stethoscope.
A stethoscope?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
Doctor thing to hear. Yeah. He thinks that the Troadec will probably be gone somewhere on holiday because they go on holiday all the time. And he's hoping that he'll be able to get into the house, have a look around, and either find the treasure or find traces of the treasure.
What's he doing? I mean, he's a stethoscope. I mean, gold bars don't have heartbeats.
No, but you'll see why he has a stethoscope. So he drives to the Troadec's house, which takes him 3 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's 270 kilometers of countryside road.
Mm.
He gets there at about 10 p.m. He uses the stethoscope to listen to the house. So he puts it on windows and stuff to hear noises inside the house to know if there is somebody in there.
Ah, right, okay.
That's why he does it.
Okay.
So he's certain at that point that the Troadec have a secret holiday house as well. somewhere that nobody knows about. So if he doesn't find trace of the treasure in the house, he thinks that treasure is hidden in that secret holiday house. So he wants to know where the secret holiday house is. So he's hoping he's going to hear them talk about it, and then he can go there, get the treasure, and report them to the taxman for having a secret holiday house. That's his plan.
This dude is spiraling. He's really spiraling.
At first he doesn't hear anything, and then suddenly Brigitte opens the door, the back door.
Okay.
She calls the cat, who's called Ulysses. No idea why.
Striding through the galaxies.
Yep. The cat is under a tree and staring at Hubert, because the cat has spotted Hubert, of course.
Hubert's been busted.
Yeah. He doesn't go into the house, continues staring, and she closes the door, and that's it.
So she doesn't see Hubert, but the cat
Nope.
sees Hubert.
Yes.
Okay.
But she doesn't see that the cat is staring at something. She doesn't know where the cat is. He knows, but he doesn't.
Okay.
The members of the family go to bed one by one as Hubert observes the house. And when the house is quiet, he opens the garage door. He's hoping to find keys in there so he can get in the house at a later date. But what he wants to do today is find the keys to the house, trace their shape on paper so that he can make keys to get into the house at some other point.
Right.
Because there's people in the house
Yes.
that day, so there's no
Yes.
point going in. But he doesn't find them. And then he realizes someone is still awake in the house. That's the son.
Mm-hmm.
And at 3 a.m. at that point, he's still awake. Of course, he's a teenager and they don't sleep. Well, they don't sleep at normal times. So Hubert decides to act because he still wants that key. So he cuts the power to the house because lots of houses have the electric board in the garage. It's very common.
Yeah, right, okay.
At 3:45 a.m., he opens the door between the garage and the house, which is unlocked, and he walks quietly on the ground floor when he hears a noise and Brigitte's voice calling, "What's going on down there?" And he panics and he freezes.
Okay.
Then behind him, he hears Pascal's voice saying, "I'll kill you." And he gets hit on the back. Hubert turns around, grabs whatever was hitting him. It was a crowbar. He hits Pascal with it, and then decides to leave via the front door. Unfortunately, that door is closed, and he doesn't have the key yet.
Oh, no.
So Pascal, at that point, charges him.
Uh-huh.
Brigitte grabs a phone to call the police, obviously.
Yeah.
Hubert hits on the head one, and on the chest and shoulder the other. He doesn't really know which one it is.
Of course, because there's no light because he's doing
there's
everything
no power
in the dark.
in the house.
There's no power, yeah.
So at that point, he sees that Pascal is covered in blood coming from his head. So that's who he hit on the head. And he's running to the electrical board to switch the light on. Then one of the kids' bedroom opens, and it's the son wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Pascal shouts to his son to grab Hubert. So Hubert takes the crowbar and hits hard at the son. The son falls on his bed.
God.
Then Hubert realizes that the crowbar is stuck inside the kid.
Oh, no.
And he tries to get it out of his chest with the foot on his chest. It doesn't work.
God.
Then he puts a foot on his head and pulls the crowbar out of his head.
Oh, my God.
Because it has the curved bit. Well, that curved bit was inside his head.
Oh, my God. That poor kid.
Yep. At that point, there's blood everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, the daughter arrives. So he hits her as well. And then Hubert turns to Brigitte, who's hiding in the bathroom. He tries to hit her through the small opening of the door, but he misses. Brigitte grabs the crowbar off him.
Yeah.
So he pushes the door open with his shoulder, takes the crowbar, and hits her. As Brigitte starts to fall, Pascal appears behind Hubert at the door.
So Pascal's still on the go.
They fight for a while over the crowbar, but it's a very small space, so it's kind of awkward. Brigitte comes back to life and attacks Hubert as well. There's blood everywhere because she's been hit to the head. She's just splashing blood all over the bathroom. So Hubert hits both of them and they both fall down.
Right. I just have The Shining in my head with that.
That's pretty much that, but with more blood.
Yeah, God.
So when he's done with the family, he sits in the garage on a chair for a while. And he says in his confession that he was just staring and he just wasn't thinking. He was completely empty at that point. At about 5:45, So we're talking 2 hours later. He comes back to himself, and he thinks about the son that he remembers hearing making strange noises, so he decides to go and check on him. He finds him in a bad position, because he was like all twisted and weird on the floor.
Right.
So he puts him back in a straight position and listens to his chest. There's nothing in there. He's dead. Then he panics. He hadn't panicked yet. Now he panics. He goes to check the daughter, puts his ear to her chest. Nothing. She's dead. He goes to check on Brigitte in the bathroom. Again, dead. And finally he checks on Pascal. Dead. They're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
So he decides to clean himself from the blood, because he's covered in blood, obviously. He's been hitting
Yeah.
people with a crowbar. And then for some reason he can't explain, he goes to electrical board and switches some of the circuit breakers on and off. He remembers doing it, but he has no idea why he did it.
Right.
And then he's on his way home. He doesn't remember much of the trip. He says he was in the daze. He had no idea what was going on. And when he gets home, his wife, Lydie, asks him if he got information of the family. And his answer is that he's done something bad that they didn't intend to do. Lydie knows what that means.
Something bad.
And she decides to clean his clothes in a basin
Right.
to remove the blood from his clothes.
Something bad.
He's done something bad, yeah.
That's a bit of an understatement.
He killed 4 people with a crowbar, yes. The Uber asks Lydie to get some large rubbish bags. And his plan is to make the Troadec's house look like it's been burgled during their absence when they're on holiday.
Oh, and their magic make-believe holiday home.
Yep. So he needs to get the family's computers and their paperwork, because he's still looking for that gold.
Oh my God, give it up.
That same evening at about 8 p.m. after having put their son to bed, they drove back to the house,
Right.
3 hours. And at first, Hubert loaded all the bodies in the son's car.
Right.
And he has trouble looking at the bodies, so he covers them a little bit, especially their face, with cloth and stuff,
Yeah.
of course. During that time, Lydie waits in their car nearby with
Okay.
a walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm.
She says at first, when she's interrogated, that she waited maybe an hour and a half. In reality, it was probably 5 or 6 hours.
Oh my God.
Yes. The next day, she went for a 3-hour walk with her son to leave Hubert time to deal with the bodies.
Okay.
She doesn't want to know what he does with them.
It doesn't want to scar the child, I guess, as well.
Well, yeah, probably. Yes.
What's Daddy doing?
Yes. So Hubert handles the bodies. His plan is to incinerate them into a large heating system on the farm, an old thing, like an old boiler.
Yeah.
So he dismembers the bodies,
Oh my God.
and he explains in details how he does it, with what tools, what he did with what tools and all that, but I'm not going to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as he was doing it, he realized that the muscles are wet, so they wouldn't burn. Because, of course, they're just dead from the previous day. They're not dry. So instead, he decides to put the bodies in bags and spread them around massive bramble bushes around the farm.
Okay.
Which the cops, when they had visited the farm the first time, didn't go into, because they said they couldn't even put their hands in the bushes. It was so spiky. So he puts the body parts in those bushes. In total, there's 379 parts.
Oh my God.
Which don't include the heads. He took the heads apart, separately.
He took the heads apart.
Right, from the body.
Oh, right, okay. Decapitated them, right, okay.
Yeah, well, he dismembered the bodies, but
Yes.
he kept the
Yes, he
heads
kept
separate.
the heads intact, okay.
Yeah. And he nearly forgot about them. It's after he was finished, he remembered, I have the heads. So that's a couple of days later that he remembers the heads, because he had put them into old wheat bags, the cloth bags.
Yeah.
He had put the heads in
Like
one of those
Hessian
bags
sacks,
and completely forgot about them.
Mm-hmm.
So he remembers them and decides to get rid of them in the sea. He does, and they're never found.
Oh my God.
So what about the crowbar then? So he kept the crowbar with him in the car after he killed the whole family. But when the cops call via René to tell them to go to the police station in Brest, the crowbar is in the car. As they're driving, he tells Lydie to grab something that's under her seat wrapped in some cloth. At that point, she doesn't know there's something under her seat. and throw it over a bridge in a river on the way.
Right.
Which he does, and they never find it. But at that point, the cops have what they need because they have a complete confession from both of them.
Yeah.
They know exactly what's been happening. It goes to trial, and it starts on the 22nd of June 2021 in Nantes. The experts agree that Hubert's account of the facts matches well enough their observations on the crime scene.
Right, from the blood splatter.
From the blood, from everything. They say, that's consistent with what he's saying. So they don't think he's lying.
No. But he should never have stopped to have a drink.
Pretty much everything is straightforward in the trial because, of course, they have a complete confession and he's not denying anything he said. They even found all the body parts, apart from the heads.
Right.
The psychologists mention that they think it was a case of folie à deux. See episode 7, the Papin sister, if you remember.
Yeah, the Pepins, yeah.
Clearly, Hubert and Lydie had spiraled out of control. It started with Hubert's sounds problems, and that made them retreat into a very small world away from everybody because they didn't want any noise.
Yeah, and losing touch with reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their personalities kind of match the necessary personality you need to have that happen.
Yeah.
For example, one of them is more intelligent than the other. One is more crazy than the other. One is more active and the other one is more passive. Isolated life. There's a whole bunch of criteria and they pretty much tick all the boxes. On the 7th of July 2021, Hubert is declared guilty of quadruple murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison with a minimum of 15.
Right.
He didn't get life because the jury decided that he was in an altered state.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to have lost touch with reality quite well, but 6 months before.
Yep. And Lydie is also found guilty of interfering with the crime scene and bodies because after they went and got rid of the bodies in the house, they went back the next day again to clean the house. Okay. And that's why there was so little blood in the house. When the cops went to the house, they couldn't even find blood from the daughter.
Yeah, that's
there was,
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they had cleaned it pretty well.
Mm-hmm. But so they're not crime scene cleaners.
Eventually, they did find DNA and they did find blood. But before the CSI team really spent time on it, they just couldn't find it. Yeah. So they had done a good job, and she was part of it, and that's why she's sentenced. And she's sentenced to 3 years in prison. One of them suspended. She's out now.
Right.
By the way.
What about her poor son? That's just sad.
I don't know what happened to the son. Most likely he went to live with the grandmother.
Yeah.
That's my guess, but I don't know for sure. Neither of them appeals the sentence.
No, okay.
He does appeal the fine.
Okay.
Because he's fined 450,000 euros to pay to the family. And he says it's too much money. That's what he appeals to.
Hubert, you've got a real thing about money.
Yeah. Otherwise, doesn't appeal to the sentence. He said, yep, I did it. And that is it. That's the Troadec story.
Yeah, no. That's not the story. What happened? Was there treasure? Did they have a holiday home?
There was no treasure ever found. René, who mentioned it to him, doesn't have it. Doesn't know where it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Has never seen it.
So?
She's only been told by her husband that he had found a treasure and that he had hidden it somewhere. She doesn't know where it is. So we don't know if there's such a treasure. But it is not impossible. Because when Germany invaded Europe in 39-40, France was the country in the world with one, if not the largest gold reserves. And they didn't want the Germans to get their hands on it because then they would have so much money that they could run the war forever. So they made the gold reserves disappear from the Bank of France. Okay. And they did it by sending money first via military boats to the US, to Canada, to some colonies, and to the UK. There, at the end, which was 1940, they were running out of time. So they started using civilian ships.
Okay, right.
Fishing boats that they were loading with boxes of gold.
People were getting itchy fingers.
Well, there was, in the end, on the last shipment, which left from Saint-Nazaire, I think, they were in such a rush that they didn't account for everything. They didn't make a note of everything they sent.
Right.
After the war, when they got the gold back, 350 kilos were missing, which is not much because there were hundreds of tons. It was like 300 or 400 tons of gold that they managed to make disappear. But about 350 kilos disappeared. And there is a story which has been in newspapers where one of the cases of gold fell into the harbor.
God, whiskey
But
galore.
they didn't have time to go and get it.
Yeah.
After the war, they sent divers, but there was no gold there.
No, so the locals said, obviously.
But there is a local family who says that, oh yeah, my grandfather recovered the gold during the war and hid it in his walls in the town where the house where the father renovated a house. They don't know if it's the same house, but it's the same town.
Right.
So it could be some of these 350 kilos of gold missing that he actually did find, but there is no evidence that first that gold was really lost, that it was recovered, and that he found it.
Yeah.
But that is a story that has appeared in newspapers over time. So we don't know.
So that's really a kind of like a myth built on a legend.
Built on real facts.
Yes.
Because that gold is missing, and it's missing from that place, and it's missing because possibly it fell into the harbor. But that's all that's sure. The rest, it's family stories, local legends. We don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, so it is possible that gold existed. It is possible that he found it because he found it where it's supposed to have been hidden.
Yeah.
We don't know.
No, well, and sometimes a family story is just nothing more than a family story.